Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Discover the Dev. I'm here today with the CEO of Playsaurus, Austin O'Block, and product manager Matthew Anderson. Playsaurus is a small game company dedicated to creating idle games including Grindcraft, an idle crafting game where you can create weapons and build your own civilization, Mr. Mine, an idle mining game where you overlook a mining company as they dig to the center of the earth, and Clicker Heroes, a classic Flash idle RPG where you upgrade your fighters and defeat monsters. Thank you both for joining us here today.
Thank you, Antonio.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So let's learn more about you. Where are you from, and what were your favorite games growing up?
Yeah, I'm Austin. I'm from Orange County, California. Growing up, I really enjoyed playing Super Smash Brothers and Star Fox on the Nintendo 64. That was like the first console I had. I also had a period of extreme addiction to MapleStory. So yeah, that was my childhood.
Nice. I thought it was just great.
Yeah.
That game.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I'm Matt. I'm from Los Angeles, California. And my favorite games growing up were probably Super Smash Bros. On the Nintendo 64, Midnight Club Dub Edition on PlayStation 2, which was a street racing game, and Rock Band on the original Xbox.
How did Playsaurus get started?
Yeah, so Matt and I joined Playsaurus several years after it was formed. The founders, Thomas and Lee, who go by Fragsworth and Dugog, formed it way back in 2011. After Meteor Games, where they had both worked, collapsed. Prior to that, they worked on Island Paradise at Meteor Games. Meteor Games, I don't know if the audience would know, but they're famous for making Neopets.
Mr. Mine is the most popular Playsaurus game on our site. What inspired the game's creation?
Definitely Cookie Clicker, which I think a lot of the idle games today have. They spawned from Cookie Clicker's success. Cookie Clicker really brought the genre into the mainstream. So I developed Mr. Mine. Actually, it wasn't a Playsaurus game initially. I developed that back in 2013, prior to joining Playsaurus. When I joined Playsaurus, it was kind of put on hold, and for nearly 8 years, there was no development on Mr. Mine. Playsaurus saw that there were still players that wanted Mr. Mine to be developed. We still had quite a few players per day playing Mr. Mine, so they decided to acquire it and fold it into Playsaurus, and then development resumed.
So, Mr. Mine started as a solo project and worked its way up to where it is now.
Exactly. Yeah, I worked on that in school, way back in 2013.
What was your favorite part in developing Mr. Mine?
Yeah, so just seeing it brought back to life, I think. So Dashel and Matt really were the two that developed it further once it was brought into the Playsaurus fold. So they really turned what was like a really messy code base into something that resembled a game. It took like a lot of effort that people don't really see the time that goes into taking something that was really that broken. When I initially developed it, I did not really know what I was doing. The code was just completely unreadable. So there's a lot that needed to be done to get it to a state that it could be developed further.
Did you make Mr. Mine in a certain game engine, or did you make the engine it was built in?
It was, I don't know if you can call it a game engine, but yeah, it was developed from scratch. It was just all JavaScript, just vanilla JavaScript. So like my background is web development, so I knew JavaScript, I knew the basic CSS, HTML stuff. So it was very similar in terms of what the stack looked like compared to like Cookie Clicker. So I was kind of looking at, I looked at Cookie Clicker, I saw that it was just basically a web game, basically a website that was in the form of a game, and that kind of motivated me to make Mr. Mine.
What advice would you give to aspiring idle game devs?
I'll let Matt go for this one.
Yeah, I think idle games are definitely like an easy and great introduction to making games, but I think like a big mistake that a lot of people make is assuming it's just like watching the numbers go up as fast as possible. Like you also have to add side content and things that will keep people engaged. And so with Mr. Mine, we've done that with super miners, trades, scientists, relics, battles, and the reactor. And then there's other games like Cookie Clicker that do it with their mini games and the skill tree.
What do you find to be the most challenging part when making idle games?
Yeah, I think what what Matt said, that pretty much hit the nail on the head. Like, the balance is critical. So like for us, when we're trying to balance these games that have really no end to them, or the end is like several months of gameplay, what we've done, which I don't know if other studios do the same thing, but we build simulators to just run through the game and play as if they're a player, just really fast at like 1,000 times speed, and then we just try different things. We add a feature, we see how that impacts that balance, just running simulations through the game. But really, at the end of the day, we need to rely on community feedback a lot. So we put it out there after using the simulator and getting it kind of in the ballpark, then we rely on the community feedback to really smooth out the balance and get it to be as balanced as possible.
So with games like Mr. Mine, do you find these games to be an ongoing process and you continually work on them?
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely. There's it's really, there's no end to development on most of these games. Like even Clicker Heroes, which has been out for a long time and had a long hiatus here, like we are looking at, you know, what could we add or change. We don't want to change necessarily too much because people are happy with kind of where a lot of these games are, and you know there will be kind of some people will be unhappy with if we make any major changes to something that's been kind of set for a long time. But yeah, we definitely are constantly looking to iterate and improve on what we have. Yeah, it's always a process, and we're always we're running tests as well within a lot of these games that just like try out different visuals and different characters and to kind of gauge what people like and don't like. For Mr. Mine especially, we're surveying the community to see kind of before we put out features that, you know, what resonates with them.
I've seen with Mr. Mine there's a lot of elements that go into the game. There's the underground city and RPG battles you don't see in a lot of idle games. So it's interesting to build up from other game genres that inspire more game content within Mr. Mine. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely, and one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is because we're an indie studio and we focus so much on the gameplay compared to, you know, monetizing and really trying to get every dollar out of every user. The result of this is we have some content that people just don't see, right? Like we will develop something like the reactor, for instance. Only a small percentage of the players ever even get that far, and that was a feature that took over a month to develop, right? So it kind of acts as a motivation for players to continue to play after several months, and just gives them a new, fresh kind of some fresh gameplay after investing a lot of time. We really want to we really put the player first before everything else. We want to make sure that the game is enjoyable and continues to be enjoyable after months of playing.
We're curious, are you able to talk about what games you're working on next?
Yeah, so we have a bunch of projects in the works. I'm super excited about a few. We have an idle racing game coming out shortly. It's not a huge project, but from the people who we've had tested, they really like it. They really enjoy it. I think it'll be a good fit. I'm hoping to get that on Cool Math Games when it launches. John was especially interested, so I'm hoping the audience enjoys it. It's definitely not the same scope as something like Mr. Mine, but yeah, it should be fun for a few plays at least.
Cool.
And then we have Grindcraft 2. Which we have grindcraft2.com, which is showing that off, which is a much larger budget Grindcraft with 3D assets. We're primarily targeting mobile for that, but we'll kind of gauge whether or not it makes sense to also release that on PC and web. I'm hoping it makes sense. I'd love to see that on web. But yeah, I mean, Clicker Heroes and Mr. Mine are still like the main focus. I'll keep improving those games because players are really still enjoying them. We still have a large player base for those games. Matt's really in charge of a lot of the product management and stuff, so I don't know if you wanted to say anything about what we're working on.
Yeah, I was also saying, like, Clicker Heroes and Mr. Mine are a big priority for us right now. Major focus has been getting Mr. Mine on iOS, and we were able to do that recently. And then Clicker Heroes, we ported the web version over to Unity. And then just this week, we were able to port the Unity version over to Android, and we're hoping in the next few months we'll be able to get it on iOS as well.
For Clicker Heroes, has it been difficult to convert a Flash game into a new game engine like Unity?
Yeah, it's definitely been challenging. We've had to create some like custom tools for turning the assets into something we can use with Unity, and then just generally just understanding the old code and just converting it into a new programming language.
This last question is more of a fun one. If you were able to create an invention, whether from one of the games you've worked on or from anything in the world, what would you make and why?
Okay, interesting question. So I'd like a self-clicking mouse. I'd like a mouse that can click for me so that my finger doesn't hurt at the end of the day. I don't want to keep clicking in these games.
That is a great idea, because I also get tired of clicking, and I sometimes hate the clicking sound when you do it so much. So that would be a huge improvement, I think, especially for game testing as you go through, so you don't have to, also, your hand is not hurting as much.
Absolutely.
I have to agree with Austin. I think a self-clicking mouse would be great, but unlike you, I want the feedback. Auto-clickers on the computer exist, but I want the mouse to click itself, and I want to hear the click.
Yeah, little dial. Nice.
Okay. Just a little bit to show that there's still some human interaction going on, right? Thank you, Austin and Matthew, for joining us on Discover the Dev. It's been a pleasure learning more about Playsaurus and your work. Do you have any last remarks for our players?
Yeah, I mean, I want to thank you. I want to thank Cool Math Games. I think Poker Heroes, a lot of the success we've had is thanks to Cool Math Games. A lot of our players have discovered our games on your site, and it was a big part of my childhood web games, especially Cool Math Games was a big part of playing in school. During after I got through my work in my different classes, I could go onto Cool Math Games and play some games there. And I think the fact that you guys are still putting so much effort into content and reaching out to developers and being so developer focused and community focused is great to see.
Thank you. We really appreciate that. I have to ask though, what is your favorite Cool Math game?
Yeah, it's been a long time. Like I have. It's been nearly a decade. There was like a running game, I think, way back that I was playing on there. There's also a cursor game. There's like a puzzle game. I'd have to look it up. I think it was like Power of 10 or something. It was called like Power of 10.
That sounds like it could be something from the Cool Math Games. I think that might be it. We definitely have a lot of games that are like the 10 by 10 or like Get 10. So that might be similar to what you're thinking.
Could be it. Yeah, I mean it's been a while since I've been on the site. I went on recently and just played a couple of the other games there, but yeah, I'd have to think back to it's been nearly 10 years, so
wow.
It's feeling old.
Big fan of the site, as we can see.
Definitely.
You can follow the team on Twitter at Playsaurus and keep up to date with their progress on the latest games. The link will be in the description down below. Thank you for watching another episode of Discover the Dev. Take care, stay safe, and spend some time idling the day away.